right, let's get to week 1. It is a loaded slate. Like, this is awesome. This is one of the best opening weekends that we've had. Usually there's like one decent game.
I'm so excited.
We almost got a 1-2 matchup in Texas and Ohio State. So let's start there. It's 1 versus 3.
Yeah.
Game is at the Shoe. Ohio State favored by 1.5 points. Over under 47.5. It is a rematch of last year's national semifinal game, but these teams are totally different.
Very.
2 new quarterbacks. That's what everyone's really been focused on because it's Arch Manning's team now. Right. We did see him start a couple times when Quinn Ewers was hurt last year, but this is the real like experience we're gonna have this season. The reins are his. He's gonna be the one figuring out what this offense looks like, how his legs are used, right? Because I think Quinn Ewers, had he been healthier, would have been used a little. They would have used his legs a little bit, but he was just banged up the entire time. Yeah. The defense is phenomenal for Texas, and I think Anthony Hill Jr. You can make the case he's going to be the second best defender on the field behind Caleb Downs at Ohio State. But Ohio State breaking in a lot of new players too was one of the things when I visited with Ryan Day back in the spring was, okay, so like, everybody comes back, which is great because then you have a super veteran team and you go and chase this goal, you win a national championship, but it does kind of reset where guys that you thought were going to play last year, like in your mind and your calculations over 4 years, didn't. So now you're a little more inexperienced, but it's a trade-off. I was like, it's a trade-off you take. He's like, oh, of course, but it's a really good point that like there are some guys that probably would have gotten a lot more experience last year had not everybody come back. So how do you see this game? I mean, again, we're really high on Texas's defense. Ohio State's, though, going to have the best offensive player in the country in Jeremiah Smith, best defensive player in the country in Caleb Downs.
Wild.
So how can they impact the game? Can Julian Sayin get the ball to Jeremiah Smith?
So I think we should start there. That's actually one of the biggest things I'm curious about because last year when these teams played in the semifinal, I think everybody forgets that Jeremiah Smith only had 3 yards in the game. Like it was
they did not want him to beat them.
No, I mean they rolled coverage over his way, right? Like they were able to find 2 or even 3 bodies to get over top of Jeremiah Smith, and they're like, we're not going to let him beat us. And they've got the same staff coming back. Pete Kwiatkowski, their defensive coordinator, does a great job with those plans. So I think that is one of the big questions: is like, does Jeremiah have a bigger impact than he did in the last matchup? And if he doesn't, then the question becomes, where do they get the plays? Because Travion Henderson, huge play before halftime, right? Like Jack Sawyer scoop and score. And I know you don't take any plays out of the game, but like if you take those out the game, this feels much stickier for Ohio State a year ago.
The game did feel that way.
It did.
For a lot of it.
No, it was a slog for both teams.
Yeah.
But like it was definitely a hard-fought game that was really close, except for when you look at the scoreboard because of a couple big plays.
And those guys are in the NFL?
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, they're all gone.
That'll be a curious thing for me. The other thing I think that I'm looking at when it comes to Ohio State's offense is their ability to get it started with the run game, because I think it's going to help Julian Sayin out if they can run the football some. But you're looking at a running back room that is completely different. An offensive line that's reworked, but I think is going to be really good. Do they have a strong run game? Brian Hartline calling plays, right? Like, is he a guy who's worked with wide receivers, played the position, but is he a guy who has the answers in the run game for when they need to pivot out of some of their base run game? So
it's also his second time elevated to this role.
Right.
I know Ryan Day said he's been spending a little bit more time on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, it's his background.
Sure.
But also, I think he feels like, he's good on the defensive side. Like the transitions, the coordinator changes, like it's fine.
Yeah.
But Brian Hartline, like, tell me what is going to be different this time. Like what he talked about being more ready for this role now. So what does that look like?
Well, I think the first time around, he was really approaching it from a guy who had seen the game of football from the periphery, from the outside. And in the time that he spent from going back to just coaching wide receivers, I think he committed himself to learning about run game, offensive front, and how all of that plays in to the pass game. I think he spent time learning about defensive fronts and how you want to attack those as well. I think that's one of the biggest things that is underrated about coordinators is you have to become an expert in every part of offensive and defensive football, regardless of which side you're coordinating, so you can be able to best attack. That's the biggest difference there. But again, facing Texas in week 1 is not the place to like figure out how to be a play caller, right? Like
right.
It's going to be tough.
With a new quarterback.
So
a new run game.
The Ohio State offense, I think, has some questions. I have questions about the defense, but not as many. My biggest question is, like, how much of this is going to be Matt Patricia's defense?
I mean, the way that Ryan Day talks about the transition and how the players have, like, just glommed onto him, it's really encouraging, I think, if you're an Ohio State fan. But yeah, like, what does it look like? What elements from his NFL experience are coming out to play? And again, personnel, like, you always have talent, but you are going to be more inexperienced at certain spots. And how does that play out? That's why, like, I love week 1 in this year, because you are going to learn so much about the questions that you have for all of these top teams, right? For Texas and where they're breaking in, or, okay, can the running back stay healthy this year? So what does the run game look like with Arch Manning, and who are going to be his targets and favorite targets? You're going to get answers because they're playing in such a high-level competition. These teams are still going to look very different. They both could certainly make the playoff. We both have them making the playoff.
No
so
doubt.
It's not like make or break for your season, but you're going to learn so much about these teams. Let's talk about the game that would be the headliner, if not for the game in Columbus, and that's the Battle of Death Valley. Like, whoever gets to call.
Are we going to pick a winner for this?
Okay. All right.
I feel like we should.
Okay, go.
Are we picking against the spread?
Yes. So Ohio State favored by 1.5 points.
Okay, well, I'm picking Texas to win the game. So
I also think I'm picking Texas to win the game.
So I didn't talk necessarily like a ton about Texas right there. That defense is going to be ridiculous. The continuity on that staff, I think, is crazy. But their offense with the wide receivers and that running back room is super underrated for Texas.
It's because everyone was banged up last year.
The only question is the offensive line, replacing 4 or 5 starters. But, like, it just feels like they're in a better spot to play this game in week 1.
I agree, and I think Steve Sarkisian, creativity, the play calling, just like the way that he moves guys around with a quarterback who's been in his quarterback room for 3 years, right? That's where.
Huge.
Yes. So I also will take Texas to win.
Okay.